This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY.
WBNY Buffalo.
The views expressed on the following program are not necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY.
All right, here we go. Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call in, you can join our discussion. We really hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're also here with Norm McCarter, he's our in-studio audience of one. Welcome, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Good morning, sir.
I blame all of the stuff that citizens say on Norm. But he's nice. He's okay with it. And of course, we have our resident genius, the guy that does all of the IT stuff that makes this live streaming of the program possible, Willie H. How you doing there, Willie?
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. Call in live, y'all, 716-878-5104.
I want to pick up initially on what Amy Goodman was talking about. I think it's just a perspective that we need to continue to have in our minds. The way things are presented to you is just as important as the actual information that's being brought in whatever is being said to you. The way you frame something colors how you see it, how you are motivated, by it. If you see somebody's hand go into another guy's face, that conveys to you something that your eyes see. But if you're being told as you see this guy hitting another guy's face, if the announcer says, and person A is touching person B, and see his hand came back, person A was touching person B, that conveys, it's true, but that conveys a different statement than saying person A just socked person B and knocked him on his, Those are two different statements altogether, both conveying the truth, but one using words as a way to redefine what your eyes are seeing and what your ears are hearing.
Right.
This is really important. You heard this being alluded to in some of the stuff that Amy Goodman was talking about in her broadcast. I went to an article written by Nada Osman. She's writing for the Middle East Eye. And granted, the Middle East Eye is a news media that is produced in the Palestine, Israel, Lebanon, in that corridor, like Al Jazeera. It's produced in that same environment. So you got to figure they have more sensitivity to things that are Palestinian than, say, people that live in New York would have, right? So I admit that. But sometimes in order for you to get understanding about something, you have to go to sources that may be a bit biased. So I don't know whether Middle East Eye is biased or not. I'm just suggesting that because they're a Middle East publication, they're probably more sensitive to what is going on in Lebanon and Palestine and Israel and so on than I would be, sitting in Buffalo watching the Buffalo Bills almost lose oh, that's another story. I shouldn't have said that.
No, then they lost. I thought they won.
No, they won, but they only won by 2 points, and
only won.
They did almost everything humanly possible to lose the game.
No. We.
Okay, so you got Norm off on another tangent altogether. Don't get him over there.
Yeah, they won, so we don't say anything bad or.
All right. You got Norm muscling up. Okay.
And don't say Norm now. But let me just say, I'm an advocate for the win, so I gotta kind of lean Will's way.
But we're on euphemisms now. All right.
Okay.
We're on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yes, sir.
And so I just wanted this article talks about the war on Gaza, how language is used by media outlets, and in a way that downplays Palestinian suffering. Every time you heard about the the Hamas assault on or attack on Israel on October 7th, every time you heard that, they told you initially for 3 or 4 weeks, they told you that 1,400 people, were murdered,
right?
By these Hamas people. Eventually, they came around and said, "Oh, it was 1,200, not 1,400." But they never had any big stories about the fact that it was 1,200, not 1,400. Big stories about the 1,400 over and over and over every day, 50 times a day. When the number dropped to 1,200, they just dropped the number to 1,200 without having any moment to it. Nobody says, "Hi, folks. I know we were saying it was 1,400, on October 7th, but it was really 1,200." Not that 1,200 is any less of a crime than 1,400. If it was one person attacked by Hamas, that would be one person too many to be killed. Mm-hmm.
No, I was just saying maybe it was just because that was the initial event that kind of got things going. That's the
way you see it as a citizen. I see it differently. I see it as 1,400 is a larger number than 1,200, and when they were talking 1,400, that was when they were, building sympathy for the Israelis for the horrible thing that Hamas has done.
Right
now, if you go back, I've done this. Go back and put into your search engine. Put Israeli-Palestinian conflict, October 7th, October 8th, October 9th. Just put those dates in there along with anything that talks about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
Yes, sir.
And you will get all of these stories coming from the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Tribune, all over the place, all just super sympathetic, to Israel.
Yeah.
I can't believe these murderous, horrible, Hamas people would do such a thing. It's just horrible. They chop somebody's head off. They rape somebody. They did this. They did that. That's what you heard all day, every day for 3 days in a row.
I remember, and as we say.
But what you were hearing, but your ears didn't teach you how to react to it, was Benjamin Netanyahu saying, "And we're going to get those Hamas people. We're going to exterminate Hamas."
Yeah.
He kept saying that during that October 7th. He said the war is going to get started in just a few days.
Yeah.
When the war started, it wasn't the kind of war that you think of, where you jump onto some land, with your Marines, and you go in with your machine guns,
right.
And you go rumble and take territory. That's not the kind of war.
It wasn't on the ground. It wasn't on the ground.
What they did is they sat over in some places in Israel, and they fired, rockets 60 miles, 10 miles, or whatever, into Palestine, into the Gaza Strip, and just began to murder people. The very first day, 150 people, killed. Next day, 300 people killed. Next day, 200 people killed.
Yeah.
Every day, more than 100 people being killed by the Israelis. And when you saw the pictures, the thing that was so despicable about it to me is that they would show you pictures of all of the destruction. And they would talk about this while they were talking about the Hamas assault or attack on Israel. So the conversation would be the Hamas attack, and you see all of these knock down buildings, burn up places, rubble, pieces of people, on the ground, and so on.
Yeah.
They didn't tell you that the images that they were showing were images of Palestinians. It was the Palestinians' buildings that were being destroyed. It was Palestinian people that you saw lying on the ground. So they're telling you a story about the terrible thing that Hamas has done to Israel, but the images that they're showing you are not damage that was done to Israel. It was damage that was being done to the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip.
Wow.
They never, not once, I've not seen a single story, not a single story that has told you the truth that I've just said to you just now.
Yeah.
But if you actually read the written stories in the magazine reports and the internet social media reports and so on, you have to follow those pictures, because one of the things that happens in Western media is they always give you the credit for who took the picture. And they usually tell you what the picture is a picture of. So if you read a little tiny print, underneath the picture, you'll see that these are images of, some place in Gaza, some other place in Gaza, some other place in Gaza, even though the article is talking about the horrible thing that Hamas did to Israel. Because the horrible thing that was being done, that was unfolding in front of your eyes, was the horror that Israel was inflicting upon the Palestinians who lived in the Gaza Strip. As we've talked about so many times before, being Palestinian is not the same thing as being a member of Hamas.
Right. Yeah.
Now, these reports that we get about how many people are in Hamas that are a part of the Hamas movement or whatever, they say it's around 30,000 or so, maybe 40,000 people on the top end. There are almost 2.4 million Palestinians who live in the Gaza Strip. I'm pretty sure 40,000 people is not even 1/10 of 1% of the population. So why is it that we're hearing whatever is being done by Hamas as if it's being done by all Palestinians? Why is it that it's okay for you to exterminate an entire block? They say that, well, there's tunnels. We know that there's some tunnels underneath the block. Our X-ray machines, whatever, I don't know where they get this, they got machines that do things that we don't know how to do. But, and these are all machines that are made by Americans, right? Yeah. That they give to the Israelis to use. But they say, we see these tunnels underground in this space. Now, if you were righteous, you would then bring your Marines, your what do they call those guys that are the special elite forces, special forces type people?
Special forces,
right?
Yeah.
You get those guys, and you go into where you think the tunnels are.
Right.
You bring in your blow up stuff. You bring in your machine guns. You go in and you try to blow up, and get people out of the tunnels. And then when you think you got control of the tunnels, you put, mines all around in the tunnels. You leave the tunnels, set the mines off, blow the tunnels up. People can't use the tunnels anymore. But the people that lived in apartment buildings above the ground, the people that were running grocery stores, in clothing shops and barber shops, and people that were doing, repairs of people's toilets and their plumbing and so on, those people stayed alive because you didn't bomb those people to death.
Right.
You could do that. Now, you would run a risk. If you're on the ground and you're going hand-to-hand combat, the likelihood that some Israelis will get killed is increased. That's true.
Yeah.
Right.
But you can't run the war as if you're, operating a video game. You're hitting little buttons, on a machine and just bombing people someplace, and you're not in the middle of the action.
Yeah.
Right.
Why? Because you don't want to have what we have now. 21,000 Palestinians killed by the Israelis, and some people would say murdered by the Israelis. I know we don't like to use those words because it implies intention, but it implies intention to me.
No, what you're saying is right. They murdered them. They got mad. Hamas killed some of their people. They said, we're going to wipe them out. So basically, I'm sorry, guys. Basically, what you're doing is killing everybody you possibly can that you think is Palestine. Or if one is over there, we're bombing that.
If you're in the same area where they think that there was some Hamas operation, then you're the same thing as Hamas.
Well, with that being said, and just to piggyback off of Will, I think that what the Israelis are doing is basically trying to eradicate totally
Palestinians, right.
All together. Because, they're not really caring. They know that they're not, Hamas. They know that most of these people
And look what they did. They went to, they bullied the people in the northern half of Gaza and say, you all have to move because we're going to start bombing around here. So you tell 1.1 whatever million people you have to move and go to the southern half of the country. You can't go to someplace else. You can't go to Egypt because Egypt don't want you. You can't go to Lebanon. They don't want you. You can't go to Syria because they don't want you. So you wind up having to go to the southern half of Gaza. Now, what do you think was happening in the northern half? Israel's bombing it to smithereens. What their intention is to depopulate the northern half of Gaza and then attack the southern half where all of the people are concentrated, which is what they're doing right now.
Wow.
They're attacking people the same place where they told the people to go to get away from the Israeli attack. That's what they're attacking right now. And the Western media, your cousin Joe Biden, and so on, all supporting this stuff. Well, Israel's got to defend itself. You've already killed 21,000 people. Wow. And according to the reports, more than 2/3 of the people you killed were either women or children. At least 8,000 of them were children.
And what's dangerous, Mr. Hare, is that they're killing these people with American weapons.
Right.
So now you got everybody else looking at us, and we're not really looking good.
And people are counting the beans. And they're saying, okay, Hamas, horrible people. We need to get rid of Hamas. They don't deserve any legitimacy in the world's eyes because of what they did.
Right.
Everybody's on that. We're good with that.
Right.
But when are you going to stop murdering 200, 300 people a day in Israel because you're still mad about the attack that Hamas did? Why aren't you moving to something that would put you in a better position to have peace?
Right.
In that area, rather than doing things that are going to create more antipathy. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, just on Will's point. Is this creating? Well, I know that President Biden is. There's so many people that have a negative outlook on him right now. At this point, there's a lot of people that are looking at him negatively. But due to, I guess, his stand with Israel and what's going on. Is this by any way going in a negative way towards him 2024 election?
No
and is
question.
that why people are leaning that way negatively?
Right. And here's how it affects Biden. Because you can't say that your choice is I'm going to go for Biden or I'm going to go for Trump. Because Trump is a piece of ilk, so there's no way you're going to go with Trump. But what people will do is they will stay home. They just won't vote at all. So what you're going to have is an imbalance. All of the kind of people that like Donald Trump are the people that are, avidly, for keeping America in the control of the, America's, preferred, let me say it that way, preferred population, right?
Okay.
I think that's a soft way. See, I'm trying to euphemize, right? Trying to euphemize.
Yes. Sir.
And, so that population, they're animated. They're all going to show up to the polls and vote. If the people that are the young people that supposedly are for Biden or had been for Biden, but they don't like him now because he didn't give them what they wanted on student loans, if people who are empathetic, to the Palestinians and see what Israel is doing to the Palestinians right now, if they decide not to vote, not voting is the same thing as voting for Donald Trump.
Well,
so what you really have to do is vote against Donald Trump and hold your nose, and then do whatever you can to advocate for what you think is right that needs to be happening in the world. Think about what's going on at the universities right now. When it was October 7th and this horrible thing was done by Hamas, you had university people all over the place, kids all over the place. Horrible thing that Hamas did that should not have been done. Terrible, terrible. Correct. That's what people should have felt about what Hamas did. But then it got to be October 9th, and Israel unleashed its assault.
right.
And initially, people were empathetic, with Israel. But then when it got to be October 12th, then it was October 15th, and now there's 2,000 Palestinians dead and more on the way to the graveyard.
Right.
Then people started saying, whoa, when is this going to stop? You already killed more people than the Palestinians killed, or Hamas killed. You already killed more people than they did. Why are you still killing more and more people? Right. And it just kept going and going. So then you started seeing peace movements, which always happens amongst the kids, right? You see peace movements on campus, stop the war, blah, blah, blah. And what happens is the people who are empowered in this country, people that are in control of media, television, people that in control of boards of top end, steel companies and heavy industry and so on, highly populated by people who are who identify themselves as Jewish people. So the universities, and the rich people, a lot more rich Jewish people than there are rich black people or Hispanic people.
Right.
I mean, by quantum leaps, more. They send endowments, to these universities, to Harvard and Yale and so on. So when these kids at Harvard and Yale and Elon and Princeton and so on, when those kids start protesting the murder of or the killings of all of these Palestinians, then the donors, right, the Jewish donors say, why should I be giving you all money when you're advocating against my people?
Right.
I'm going to hold my money back.
Right.
So it puts the universities in a position of having to either suck up, to where their money comes from, or find another way to replace that money.
Well, let me ask you this,
Sucking up
Mr. Hare.
seemed to be the valid way to go.
Would it put President Biden in a position of strength or weakness if he were to step up? And I think he's tried already to stop talk to Netanyahu.
Norm, I know where you're going, and trust me when I say this. There is no good place for Biden to stand. He can't stand in any space.
Either way.
No matter what he does.
He's gonna get hurt.
He could go east, west, north, south, north, south, south, east. He can go any way he wants to go. He's going to be wrong to a significant number of the American population.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
he would look weak the other way.
Think of it like this. This is going to sound narrow-minded. So I want to preface what I'm saying.
No,
right? It's going to sound narrow-minded.
Yes.
African people have a tendency to sympathize with other non-white people who are being oppressed. So Native Americans, if they're going out protesting something, you can assure yourself that a bunch of African people will go out and protest with those Native Americans. You would say, why? You're not a Native American. Say, well, that may be true. But I know what they did to me,
Right.
and I know what they did to these Native Americans,
Right.
and I know that if I don't stand with them today,
Right.
there's not going to be anybody to stand with me tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Remember the theorem from the German priest that I told you about,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Right? When they called for the gypsies, I didn't react, because I'm not a gypsy. They called for the handicapped people. I didn't react because I'm not handicapped, et cetera, right? And then he said, but then one day they called for me. And when I went out to get help, there was nobody around to help me. So
right.
African people understand that theorem. So they tend to be with you. So what African people tend to see is this is a struggle between a minority, a white minority oppressing a non-white minority. That's what African people see. They see the Jewish people as a white minority in the world, and they see the Palestinians as a non-white people in the world. So black people judge it that way.
Yeah.
When it was just Hamas did this 1,400 or 1,200, person murder of Israelis, black people were on the side of the Israelis. But when the Israelis started murdering 100, 200, 300 people a day, it didn't take black people long to figure out, we can't let that slide. That's not good, right? And black people began to, not all, I think the majority of black people still sympathize with Israel, but a large segment of black people began to sympathize with the Palestinians, not with Hamas. And let's be brutally honest. Of all of the people that you know in your family and your crew, how many of them even know what Hamas is?
But I just learned who they were. You know what I mean?
How many of them have you ever heard even say the word Hamas at any time in their entire life?
Right. So this is
I've never
brand new.
known just until I learned it from you.
Right.
Yeah.
See, so it's not that black people were turning against Israelis. It's that black people didn't have any feeling about Hamas, period. It's just a word, right?
Who are they?
All they know is that the Palestinians are not white. They're browner than white people.
But you know what? So many people in general don't know or realize the difference between Hamas and Palestinian.
Right.
At this point, they're thinking that they're one and the same.
And that's the important point, Norm. That's the important point. The media should be doing this. You have control of the sources of information that people are getting their information from. You should be accountable and responsible for giving people that information in a way that fairly expresses what is true.
Yeah.
You should be saying to people every time you talk about, when the Israelis are saying that we're going to eliminate Hamas, we're going to eradicate Hamas. You have to also say, when Israel says that, that's what Israel is saying. But you as the public need to understand that Hamas is not the same thing as Palestinian.
Right.
There's four Hamas people and there's 2 million, Palestinian people. For Israel to be killing 20,000 plus Palestinians because they killed 1,200 Israelis, we're stretching way beyond what is proportionate. And the people that you're killing, for the most part, are not the people that were involved in the crime.
Right, but
most Palestinians were not involved in the crime.
Well, like you said, when you got most media full, I know Fox. I heard them, and I heard how they go Hamas and then they go Palestinians. Like it's the same.
They're the same thing, right?
They do not try to differentiate which one is which. They Hamas and then they'll go Palestinian Hamas, so that they want their people or people that are listening to them that it's Hamas and we got to destroy it.
And do this for the audience. Do this in an internet study for yourself. Type into your search engine something that talks about Israeli support or Israel support among Republicans wanes in 2021, 2022, something along that vein, right? Type in those kind of words. And you'll see news reports come up, New York Times, whatever, Tribune and so on.
Yeah.
You will see reports that come up talking about Republicans giving Biden a lot of grief about the amount of money that the nation gives to Israel. They were not really all that supportive of Israel, at that point.
Right.
Right. Now, when Trump was president and they were sucking up to Benjamin Netanyahu, right, they were all for Israel. When Biden became president, all of a sudden the Republicans weren't all that friendly with putting American money up to support Israel. Now, when they see that Israel is a trump card they can use to beat on Joe Biden,
right?
Now all of a sudden they're fans of Israel again.
Right.
The same thing they did with Ukraine. Russia attacks Ukraine. You can't tell me that after World War II and this entire world order was created for the purpose of preventing another world war from taking place, because the tools of war have become so sophisticated that if a world war takes place, you will probably kill 2/3 of the people on the planet.
Yeah.
So they try to do everything in their power to stop that from occurring. And for the 70-some years, it was effective. But now you got Putin saying, well, I don't think you all are going to use your nuclear weapons against me, and I got a big army. I got 600,000 people in my army. I'm going to take a piece of Ukraine and make it a part. In fact, I'm going to conquer Ukraine and make it a part of Russia. You would think that Republicans, claiming that they're the defenders of democracy and capitalism, et cetera, that they would jump on that and be strong for Ukraine. But the Republicans initially were strong for Ukraine when they thought that it gave them, votes, amongst their MAGA supporters. But when they saw Biden was getting a lot of support because of all of the effort that he put up, to get support for Ukraine, all of a sudden the Republicans say, well, no, we can't do Ukraine unless you kill a bunch of immigrants, coming into the southern border of the United States. Like one has anything to do with the other. It's that sort of stuff, that the public has to be focused on. But listen, you hear that music, right? That music means that you are taking somebody else's time. So let's allow our sponsors to have their say. We'll see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. We're here with Norm Carter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And thank you for all of that contribution, because people, they got to hear it, right? They got to hear it from perspectives.
Yes, sir.
I know that I'm biased. I got my own biased views. So that's why I need you all to help balance us out. And, of course, we're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome back, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
So I'm just going to finish up with this point to help us to understand why I'm speaking about it in this context. The Washington Post, in an article that they posted October 14th of this year, that was only 7 days after the Hamas assault on Israel, it said that the Israeli Air Force, this would have been October 14th, the Israeli Air Force said it dropped 6,000 bombs on Hamas targets in Gaza. That's what they say. 6,000 bombs on Hamas targets in Israel, or excuse me, in Gaza. Now, I don't know. These bombs are big bombs. 6,000 200-pound bombs seems to me to be an awful lot of bomb weight.
That's a lot of retaliation,
right,
sir.
on just one day.
Yeah.
That you drop on Gaza in response to, the Hamas attack. Now, just to put this into context for you, it says in the entire war of the U.S. against Afghanistan, for that entire war, for that period, for just a year, 2019, for that one period, 2019, in the U.S. war against Afghanistan, the United States dropped 7,300 bombs for the whole year.
Yeah.
Israel dropped 6,000 bombs on one day.
Yeah.
On Gaza.
And that war that we fought against, that you saw the whole war on TV. It was very technical. It showed every bombing, pretty much to the letter that they did. And
yeah. And so I say this to you to understand the scale. Israel immediately began saying, after October 7th, that it was engaged in a war, that Gaza had, the Hamas had declared war on Israel. Israel was declaring war on Hamas. And they put it into that war context. That then justified doing, humongously, military, destructive type things.
Right.
And that's what Israel began to do. But Hamas, they got grenades, they got, a couple rocket launchers, they got some machine guns, they don't have any tanks, they don't have any airplanes, they don't have any bases, they don't have a standing army someplace, and so on. They're a guerrilla movement. They're an underground guerrilla type movement. Now, they won as a political party. They won the sweepstakes for who got to be the administrator of government services in the Gaza Strip. But keep in mind, they're the administrator of government services if people allow them to do it. Taxes that get collected are put into banks in the Israeli area, right? The food can't get into the Gaza Strip unless Israel lets the food in. They close that off. Water can't get into the Gaza Strip. It can't get into the desalinization plants unless Israel allows the plants to be open and process water, taking the salt out of the water and giving unsalted water available to Palestinian people. That's not happening. Israel cut that off on the 9th of October. Food, water, clothing, electricity, right? You can't run a hospital without electricity. All the fuel that you needed to be able to run those things that require power to operate, all that stuff was cut off by the Israelis.
Right.
So if you have the power to be able to do all of that and you're using that power, what does that say about the power of the Hamas? They're powerless compared to the power that the Israelis had over everything that is relevant to the population of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to add that, and to your point, on top of the powerless aspect that they're already at, the media isn't helping. The media in itself, and the way that they're wording things and the way that they're bringing things, to the people, there's never going to be any real, I'd say, just other people coming in. Now, you got a lot of support, I guess, from the younger people looking at Palestinian and what's going on. But basically, they're still making it look as if Palestinian brought this upon themselves with the initial attack.
Right, that's exactly right. They are correct.
Well, they did,
in the
though.
sense that
they did.
The Hamas people started this.
Yeah.
They are correct, okay? But the Palestinian people, they were not given a vote on this.
They had nothing to do with it.
They didn't say that, let's go attack, Israel.
Right.
This was something that was done by this militant organization called Hamas.
How come?
But all of the Palestinians are paying the price.
The media, how come they know this in the same way that you're wording it, but they won't bring it about. They won't speak on it.
That's because clearly the media is suffering from the same illness that the universities are suffering from. When those people that put money up to endow universities say, I'm not going to put my money up anymore,
right?
It's because the people that were putting up the money were people that have an affinity with Israel.
We got a caller, guys.
Okay, so let's grab that caller real quick before we get too far off of our point. Hi, caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. The United States gives Israel $4 billion a year.
Mm-hmm.
A year.
Yes, sir. Now, we complain about that all the time.
What Ukraine is asking for to defend themselves from their Russian invasion is a small fraction of it. It's in the millions, not the billions. And the Republican Party is saying, well, we can't support that war forever. Let's cut them off. Well, we've been propping up Israel since 1948.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He told us
we've been putting anywhere from $4 to $10 billion. Listen, I mean, you just talked about that $4 billion is like the sort of like regular grant money that they give to Israel every year. On top of that, they gave $13 billion in military assistance to Israel in the last 4 months.
Wow, that's great.
Right? I mean, and don't get me wrong. I understand that the Americans see Israel as a base in the northeast corner of Africa that gives them a toehold, someplace they can operate from if they have to fight a battle in northeast Africa. I get that. I understand strategically why they feel that way. That's not my issue. I'm not mad at Israel for that reason. My issue with what's going on here is Netanyahu is treating Palestinians as if they are expendable, clutter on the ground. Like, I don't even have the right words to be able to call it. Go ahead and say what you were saying. I just get lost in my thought there.
They've been colonizing them and encroaching on their land for, many, many decades. And that's what gives rise to groups like Hamas.
Right.
They're seen as resistance fighters. Yeah.
See, this gets into the issue. You have to be honest in what you say. If your position is the reason why I'm supporting Israel being stood up in the Palestinian corridor is because Jewish people around the world, particularly in Western Europe, were being oppressed just because they were Jewish, and Jewish people needed a place they could live where they would not be oppressed, they could be free to grow and prosper, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that. I understand why they targeted Palestine, because the Bible, which is their text, at least the first 5 books of the Bible are their text. The Bible promises that land to Israel. The issue that I'm trying to get people to understand is that's something that you say the one God said to somebody who has been dead for 4,000 years. Abraham's been dead for a long time, right? So you're telling me that Abraham told you that the one God told him that this land is your land. This is your promised land. Well, if I'm a descendant of the Edomites, of the Jebusites, of the Amorites, of the Hittites, you get the ites that I'm talking about, right? If I'm a descendant of all of those people, and I've been living there before there was such a thing as Israel, I was living there when there was an Israel. I've been living there since Israel ceased to exist in 721 BC. Why is it I got to lose half of my land and you get half of my land? You didn't got to pay for it. You just had my land just given to you. You got Palestinians that are still mad about this. And, there's such a thing as generational bondage. And that's what I think is going on here. When would the Palestinians let go of the fact that half their land was taken for free, just stolen from them by the Allied powers after World War II? The Balfour Agreement may be great for the Palestinians and may be great for the monarchies, that ruled Western Europe, but it wasn't great for the Palestinian people. They're still mad about this.
The people that are still living are still feeling that.
And they may never stop being mad about this, right? You need to talk to people face to face and say what's true and then try to negotiate through what is true. You can't just keep mounting things that are untrue and making people have to suck up things that are not true.
And to add insult to injury, now Israelites are killing Palestinians that has nothing to do with Hamas.
Yep. So I didn't mean to cut our caller off. Did you have another point you wanted to make?
Just that, all the people of Hamas are not the same, I'm sure. It's kind of a loose organization. Right. Originally, I guess, was a democratically elected group back in 2008, something like that. And now they were elected in their population. They had a democratic election in their population, and Hamas won the election, and they became the governmental administrators. But they have to do everything through Israel. I mean, the water gets there through Israel, the electricity gets there through Israel, the food gets there through Israel, and so on. So, and then Israel basically cut off all of the power, all of the food, all of the clothing, everything. They cut all of that stuff off, and it's been off for almost 60 days. Wow. So what you've got are people who they're living. People are drinking dirty water off the ground. Oh, I know.
You know what I mean? Literally liquid mud. That's what they're drinking and whatnot, right? So you got thousands of people that if they're not dead, they're dying because of the suffocation of their infrastructure by Israel. Yeah. No one's talking about that. They keep talking about, the 20-something thousand people have been bombed to death, but what about the people that have just been made sick to death because their medical machines don't work, because there's no water, because there's no refrigeration, and so on? There's got to be tens of thousands.
Because the roads are clogged up from all the bombing, so they can't even if they allow trucks to go through, they can't now.
And Carla, you just hit another point that's been oppressing my mind. In my mind, I'm looking at these images of Gaza, and I'm asking myself, and I hope the public would ask themselves, what would it cost to rebuild everything that has been destroyed? If you knock down a single block in Buffalo, just one block from, Wohlers to Winslow, in Cold Spring District of Buffalo, you knock down one block, it'll cost you almost $1 billion to rebuild that block. You have knocked down 25% of the buildings in the Gaza Strip already. 25% of the buildings have been knocked down. Where's the money going to come from to do this? You got $1 trillion laying around that you can take to rebuild the Gaza Strip? This is never going to end.
And America is giving them money That money that could probably be used to help them, giving them.
Well, that money ultimately is going to Rockwell Industries, to Dow, Chemical, to General Electric.
Oh, really?
Because they're the ones who build the bombs. They're the ones who build the tanks. They build the mortars, right? I mean, so at the end of the day, it's American tax money. Your and my tax money is essentially going to Rockwell Industries and Dow and whatever these airplane manufacturers are and so on. These military industrial complex people, our tax money is going to them.
Good point.
Yep.
Thanks for taking my call. I got something coming in here, but I'll be in touch again.
Thanks, brother. Talk to you again soon. I thought that was an insightful, call. I mean, because this is not taking sides on, do I like Israel? Do I not like Israel? I like Israel. I mean, when I was growing up, we used to be able to walk up and down Jefferson Avenue from basically Eagle Street to Ferry, and half of the businesses that we would be able to do work for were businesses that were owned by German people, white German people, and Jewish people, not German people, white Jewish German people. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
White Jewish German people.
Yeah.
And so we just had this very I don't want to say romantic, but we had a very close associative relationship between the African community and the Jewish community.
Yeah.
That's always been the case, right? We've never not felt that way. My issue is that this Netanyahu person has been empowered to unleash what I consider to be a monstrous horror onto these Palestinian people with no rebuttal, no resistance from the government of the United States.
Well,
and you're using my money to do it.
Well, here's my say on this, Mr. Hare. Us being allies with Israel and giving the monies that we do to Israel, we should have a stronger hold on Netanyahu than we do. If we're giving this type of money to him, there's no way that he should, we call for a ceasefire.
Netanyahu has publicly stated that I don't care what the Americans say. I'm doing what I'm doing. We're going to eliminate all of Hamas. By that, he really means eliminate all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. Right. That we're going to continue to prosecute this war. And he says the war is going to go on for many months.
Yeah.
So that means you're going to continue to be killing 100, 200, 300 people a day for many months going forward. Now, what Americans could do if they had any kahunas and there was any integrity in America. Remember, just because this is a democracy doesn't mean you can't have people with no integrity. You can elect people like Donald Trump that don't even know what the word integrity means. So that's not an attack on democracy. It's a reflection on lack of integrity. Biden and the Democratic administration have no integrity. For you to allow this to occur with our money, if they had any integrity, they would say to Netanyahu, if you want to get these tunnels, closed down, you got to get on the ground and fight on the ground and take control of the spaces where those tunnels are.
But
that's what you have to, and you have to take whatever risk and whatever losses you incur, you got to take it. You cannot be murdering 200-300 people a day in Palestine.
Well, here's my say. From the point of strength, and the only thing that I see that could bring President Biden back in a way of put a positive spin on things going forward is basically stopping the monetary give that he's giving to Israel, and letting him know, look, if you're going to do this and you're not going to pay any attention to us, or you'll do this alone. You'll fight the battle without our machinery, without our weapons, and without our money.
Right. But what I believe will occur, what I think the Netanyahu, I'm not saying Israelis, Netanyahu and his administration, because I don't blame America for Donald Trump. I blame Donald Trump for Donald Trump.
Right.
I don't blame Israel for Netanyahu. I blame Netanyahu for Netanyahu.
Right.
And so from my point of view, the Netanyahu is like a Hitler. He's like a Nazi. Okay, that's how I see him.
Yeah, he's out of control.
And he's influenced enough of the Israeli politicians that they are going along with him because they feel they're threatened the way that he says that they're being threatened. My point is that you can say to Netanyahu either to go what you just said, you withhold the money if they don't behave differently. But what I believe would occur is Netanyahu would go to the Jewish godfathers around Europe. Remember, the Jews have been in Europe longer than they've been in the United States. So you got people that are high up the money tree in Europe, just like you got people high up the money tree in the United States. And so what I think Netanyahu would say to the United States is, well, if you don't help continue to put money with me, I'll go to them. I'll go to Russia.
Right.
That's what you got to understand. A good chunk of the Jewish population in Israel are Israeli Jews. Or excuse me, are Jewish Russian Jews is the word I'm looking for. We're Russian Jews. They came and they migrated when it became possible after 1948. They migrated from Russia into Israel. So you got this population of people who were formerly communist, right? And now they're a big portion of the population of Israel. You got that grouping of people, right? So you got to be clear that Netanyahu basically is saying you don't really hold all of the cards.
Right.
You know what?
I could go to Russia. I just want to say I could go to Russia, and the Israelis have been in bed with the Russians as we speak. They have already been in bed with. They get gas, fuel supplies from Russia. They get other kinds of economic transactions with Russia.
Right.
So the Russians would just move over to Israel and say, well, if the Americans don't want to sponsor you, you can become our girlfriend.
Right.
That's not the word I was looking
now,
for.
But you're right. Right now, America is in a rock and a hard place.
Right, between a rock and a hard spot.
And even them continue to fund them. Other countries are now starting to talk, well, maybe, China's side. With
Netanyahu is in bed with Viktor Orban in Hungary. All that would happen is if the Americans just suddenly withdrew their support, then these autocratic Nazi-type regimes that exist in countries around the world, particularly in Russia and in Hungary and so on, they will just pick up Israel and make Israel a client state of them. And we'd wind up being in a worse situation than we are right now. That's what they're holding over Biden's head.
Yeah.
Now, I say that, I think that we could defeat that, but that's the risk that I think that Biden is dealing with.
Right.
And of course, the Republicans recognize that risk as well, and they're manipulating it to make Biden look weak, like he's a punk.
So Trump could take over.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get that out there. I went farther than I thought. I don't want us to miss the fact that January 17th is not very far away. Right. This is the 26th, 27th of December. So we got 4 more days of December and then 17 days in January.
Right.
So 21 days from now, we're facing another government shutdown. You haven't heard a word coming out of the little smiley, sneaky little guy, Michael Johnson, who's the new Speaker of the House. You haven't heard anything. I mean, to me, he just seems like a worm.
He's a weasel.
Right. I'm not just saying that because of how he looks. It's the things he said and the things that he's done. And we can talk about that on Friday.
Mr. Hare, can I, I almost feel like the Republicans, that party, of course they're using Trump, but I almost feel like they have an agenda, and or they feel like, you know what, we're going to take over because we feel like there's countries that are a threat to us. In their eyes, they might see Trump as somebody being a dictatorship that'll make us, seem stronger, because we're going to do exactly what Trump wants to do, and they feel like will become more of a threat to other countries. Is that?
I think that's right on
okay.
point.
Okay.
Because if you have a strong dictatorial type of leader,
Right.
then everybody runs under one will, under
Right.
one direction,
Right.
and so on, right? So if you're concerned about your relationship with other countries, and in your own country you got 36 different points of view that have been democratically elected into leadership positions in the country, then you got people running off in 36 different directions. Whereas if you just establish, a dictatorial autocratic ruler, you're only going in one direction. So if everybody's all on one page, on one direction, even if you don't like that page,
Right.
but you're in one direction, you are more likely to be able to marshal your resources efficiently to resist or fight whoever your opponents are.
You know what? I feel that, and I can see that, but then you lose all of the allies that you have, and see, your strength is always going to be in your allies. If you are going to be a total dictatorship, then that's on you, and then the ally, you lose that, then you probably
remember
negative situation.
Remember the thesis of democracy. The thesis of democracy is that over time, if you allow everybody to have their say, everybody to vote towards their preference about how to respond to this or that need or issue, if you do it that way, you're going to have lots of different opinions and people are going to vote different ways. But over time, the arc of the growth and development and security of your people bends towards justice over the course of time. In certain particular times, things aren't going to be as cool as they ought to be. As I've said to you all before, I grew up when there were still signs on fountains and in bathrooms and in what door you could enter to get onto a train that said, whites here and blacks over there. I grew up in that time. But the arc of history still bent towards justice because I live today, and my daughter has no memory at all of what I'm talking about. When I tell my daughter about what this country used to be, she looks at me with a glazed look in her eye like, Daddy, what are you talking about? Right? She just can't believe that country ever existed. Well, that's good. I don't want to make her have to relive what I lived through, right? And that's the point. Democracy works that way, but democracy is messy. It means that sometimes you're going to have everybody's oars in the water going in the same direction, and a lot of times you're going to have oars in the water going in different directions. You have to live with that in an American democracy, in the experiment that exists here. You have to live with that, trusting that over time, our development will bend towards what is best for us as a whole. I know we got the music on. We can't go through that thesis much further than that right now. But I hope that gives you a little bit of insight as to where we are, where we were, where we are, and where we got to go.
Yes, sir.
Donald Trump is trying everything in his power to kill what we hoped that we would be. He's going down the road that you were talking about. We need an autocratic ruler who will jump when I say jump.
That's what he wants.
When I snap my fingers, you say how high, and so on. But I don't think that's the country that we want.
Yeah.
Right?
We might as well go back to kings and queens.
There you go.
That's the
King George got to stay where he is.
Yeah.
He can't come here anymore. All right. Thank you all for listening to us and supporting us. Hopefully we made some sense in the course of the program. Thank you, caller, for joining in and helping us with this discussion. We look forward to talking to you all on Friday here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM, WBNY. We'll see you all then.